She's the Tila Tequila of American poetry, Franny Choi.
And they're an excellent poet and terrible pandemic celibate, Dinesh Smith.
And you're listening to Verses, the podcast where poets confront the ideas that move them. Yes, Franny Choi is correct. As soon as I got that second shot of Moderna, I said, all bets are off. Annie's too.
God. You're an incel. Like, in no world are you staying celibate.
No. Incapable of celibacy? Yes.
Incapable of celibacy. Yeah, that's you.
It only works because I have a partner who is just as vaccinated and a hoe as me. And so
wow, that's true love. Or truly worrisome.
Yeah, same thing. What is love but not a concern?
Not a health concern for your friends and family.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Don't worry, it's not going to end how you think it's going to end. It will end lovely. Thinking about this, right? Franny, are there any endings that actually like leave you like satisfied? And not just like, like TV and film, right? But like, are there like anything that like ends or stops, let's say, that you find like a particularly like satisfying way, like good end to a relationship or like good end to like a...
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that a good end to a relationship exists. I believe in the existence of that, But
not in your research.
I haven't seen it personally, but I believe in the theory. But recently I was looking at the website for an organization that like operates in Atlanta, like a kind of like grassroots movement org. And they were talking about how like this was their sunset year. They'd been like in operation for like maybe 5 or 10 years or something. And they were like, our work has come to a close, like as an organization. And so we are going to spend this next year shutting down and like closing this chapter of our work. And I think the idea of a sunset year for your organization or for your program and like making sure to take like that year to do that intentionally, like I don't know what it entailed, and I have no idea whether that sunset year was like a really beautiful one or whether it was like a total crash and burn. Like I don't know, but I love the idea of that. Actually,
the concept is beautiful.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. But what about you? What's a good ending?
You had such an eloquent and beautiful answer, and I'm not to be trash.
Okay.
So what I literally thought about was in a relationship, like, don't need like the last of something, right? Like, I was thinking about like little things like the last like chicken wing or like piece of chocolate. Like I am so willing to like give that to my partner, even though I know that wing tastes really good and that my partner doesn't really like wings like that. Like, I'm like, you know what? Because it will make you happy, you can have it, And like my boo is the corny person that will like notice that shit. But last word, oh no. Nobody's getting the last word over Dinesh. I don't even have to have a point anymore. I can have like been like admittedly proven wrong, and I will still find a way to be like, but bitch.
Like in an argument.
Okay, you were right, but still tone. I didn't like the way you said what you were correct at.
Wow. If you don't get the last word, then that's not satisfying for you. So
yeah, giving the last wing, satisfying for everyone. But like getting the last word, satisfying only for me. Maybe detrimental to my relationship.
Wow.
But so and maybe that's all that matters, right? But that's also the thing too, where I'm like, I need to like, I'm starting to recalibrate and be like, okay, like Dinesh, will this choice be like pettily satisfying for you as an individual, but in horribly for your relationship? Like, is there a way to like have a mutually beneficial satisfaction in terms of your decision?
Oh my God. That's amazing. And I now want somebody to go through all of the episodes of Versus and say how many episodes the episode was over, and Dinesh just said like, pop it up. Like just some little thing at the end to be like, make sure I have the last word.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay, bye.
I have to make a sound, I have to be whatever the fuck, after everybody's done clapping at the good line at the poetry slam, I still got to go, like loud. I'm just that nigga.
Are you a last clapper?
No, but you know what I do know? I'm the first one out. I'm like, when I decide when we stop clapping. Like in my head, I'm like, okay, and now we stop, y'all. And then like, it's like 3 more claps. I'm like, everybody's waiting on my signal to like begin the ending of the clapping. I feel like the clap orchestrator. I'm a first clapper. I'm definitely a first clapper, but then like I'm like, okay, and everybody see, and we're ending.
Oh my God. It's the same energy as like a dad who, whenever they go in front of like an automatic sliding door, you know, they like do the wave of their arm. And then it's like, haha, I did it. Magically, I opened the doors. Do you do that too?
Yeah.
I mean-
I do that sometimes.
Oh my God.
It brings me such satisfaction.
Oh my God.
Oh no, I'm a dad.
You are a dad, and I love it. I love it so much. Well, going back to this idea of like having the last word, I think that sometimes being able to get to that ending, that like very last thing that's possible to say, is like really satisfying. And then there's also like that like thrilling sexiness of like just pulling back right before that thing, you know, like just leaving them hanging a little bit. There's like a sort of deliciousness of that. And our guest for today, Rachel McKibbens, the poet, the legend, the witch queen mother of us all, talked about the kind of like magic that happens in writing and delivering a poem that stops just short of actually reaching that satisfying big climactic ending that we might expect, and what kind of like happens in that empty space between the poet and the audience member when you stop a poem rather than ending it. And we talked about so many other things in this interview about writing in the aftermath of endings, in the aftermath of traumatic and tragic events, what it means to be in touch with your own wickedness as a writer and as a person. And then also sort of like what happens when you are a fighter, and what happens when you realize that part of your healing necessitates surrendering to the world and to the powers around you. So this is a really incredibly special conversation with one of our longtime heroes, Rachel McKibbens, who showed us, I know, Dinez and me both, and also like so many of our peers and friends, a way to be in this world as poets, as queer poets of color, and as people who have survived all that entails.
Wow. Franny, I'm going to miss hearing you summarize what we talked about. It's truly a pleasure to witness it every time.
Oh, babe.
But no, seriously, Rachel McKibbens, all these bitches being us, is her sons.
All these bitches right here on this podcast.
All the bitches that host this podcast
are her sons.
Are her sons and her daughters. Rachel McKibbens is a queer Chicana writer and 2-time New York Foundation for the Arts Poetry Fellow. She is the author of 3 full-length books of poetry: Blood, From Copper Canyon, Pink Elephants, and Into the Dark and Emptying Field, a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize. For 4 years, McKibbens taught poetry through the Healing Arts Program at Bellevue Hospital and continues to teach creative writing and lecture across the country as an advocate for mental health awareness and victims of violence and sexual abuse. In 2012, McKibbens founded the Pink Door Writing Retreat, a week-long writing intensive held exclusively for non-men writers of color. McKibbens is a member of Latinas Unidas and hosts the reading series Poetry and Pie Night out of her bar, the Spirit Room, in upstate New York. Y'all, we can't even gush anymore. This is truly, truly a wonderful interview, one that I hope that you sit down and really open up your heart with and leave a little bit more dangerous. And so with no further ado, here is Rachel McKibbens with a poem.
One more time with feeling. When I was 19, I stole a gun. The drug dealer next door blitzed out of her skull, didn't see me pull it from her kitchen cupboard. As the California sun sank below the foothills, I haunted the neighborhood, screaming your doomed name. I was ready, a death wish Romeo beneath your bedroom window. Split once a neighbor threatened to call the cops. I never told you this story, not because I regret what I did, was prepared to do. Those 45 minutes of havoc hunting down your head. Back then, I wasn't shit. Just electrified violence, all fists, piss, and safety pins. An unwed teenage mother with no address. You had parents. Freckles, a 3-story house. I'd listen to you spit your angsty fiction while I slept in parks and ate from garbage cans. When I learned you were coveting the man I loved, I felt my insides darken, cursed your well-fed royalty disguised as grit, got tired of the forgery, wanted all the black-eyed wealth to myself. Bang, you're dead. Wish I could say I've put those days behind me, that I never fall into the steel-weight daydream of a gun's hard lesson. 1995, half my life ago. Still, every time you call to bitch about your latest ex-soulmate or DUI, one more kid taken from you by the state, I want to tell you about the only night you survived. When something said, fall asleep, and you did. Crashed hard with a starving bitch and pistol at the ready, birds still singing in the half daylight. I'll say it here right now, one more time, with feeling. It was the only moment in this wretched life a God was on my side.
Oof.
I remember y'all hearing this poem for the first time.
I think it was at a Rust Belt, I think.
It sure was. And I had to stop and say, like, don't you fucking record this. Yeah, because what was wild was this was going to be out in print. And my friend who this is about still follows me on Insta. And I don't know why. I just felt really bashful about her knowing I was going to shoot her in the head.
Weird.
Have y'all talked about
No, I don't know. We just don't talk about it. Which is weird because she had posted that she bought the book on her Instagram. And I was really interested in if she saw herself in that because it's so specific. I write plenty of work where I want more than one person to see themselves in it. But this one was so specific and I name like physical attributes, where she lived. And even if she does recognize herself, she knows that that's a former place. The speaker of the poem, which of course is me, doesn't reside necessarily still in that spot. But, I think as someone whose lineage is absolute violence, it's important for me to name that shit, especially like just as a woman in the world, as a mom, to deny those facets of my existence would be an absolute dishonor to who I've become now. Less shooty, more stabby, maybe.
Progress, growth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's this poet, Steve. God, I feel terrible not remembering, but he had a line, I prefer the intimacy of a knife fight, and I've never forgotten it. Forgot his last name, but I've never forgotten that line. Because the Mexican in me is like, yes, I can write poems with a razor blade under my left tit, and we're fine. Things are great, but that's just how I exist in the world. And I think that people mistake poets for being nonviolent.
Talk about that.
That's a major mistake, I believe, and if we've learned anything within our own community, we are just as capable of harm, if not more inventive harm than anyone else.
Oh my God.
Worse than a violent nigga is a violent nigga with an imagination, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think of the stories I would hear from my uncles who were all chronically incarcerated, gang members and drug dealers, and the pure imagination of the violence within the prison system, as well as the gang violence that happened. My uncle's best friend messed around with, the Mexican mafia. And when his body was found, it was absolutely what I would consider poetic, what they did to him. I think that kind of imagery is why so much of that presses itself hard into the framework of my writing. I like to believe that there's a very visceral energy to the images that I allow to inhabit my work. And, I grew up a latchkey kid and cinema was my mother. And I like to have a very cinematic feel to the work. I need folks to feel as if they are a very captive audience or trapped. because there's a difference in those two.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like hearing you read that poem and just like having that experience of being, it's so cliche to say at the edge of my seat, but literally like my whole body tense, like trying to catch every word to know what was going to happen. It's actually like a rare thing, to be able to make that effect happen. I mean, and it goes back, I think, also like to Pink Elephant. Like I remember reading Pink Elephant and being like it was the first book of poetry where I just felt like I could not look away and like had to keep reading. Like it was the first time I like read a whole book in one sitting and was like, I didn't know that like a book of poems could do this to me, like give me this feeling.
Thank you for that. I get told more often than not that people have to put it down constantly, which I completely understand. I have never read, with the exception of when I did that really ridiculous like poetry telethon to raise money for mortgage during lockdown. Right. And I read all of my books in like that was the first time I had ever allowed for myself to read Pink Elephant front to back. I've never done that. I'd lived it. I wrote it. There was no need to revisit. I don't know how many people sit and read their books. I worked too long on mine. I was sick of it for a long time, but I love my poems to stop instead of end. And I think it's the level of momentum in that work that allows the reader to kind of come to their own conclusion, or, it designs for them this like wicked little journey that they are more interested in excavating something out of their own selves. Because I think that a lot of people imagine that I grew up and was raised by monsters, but I wasn't. I was raised by incredibly, horrifically human people. Humans are the most frightening creatures on the planet. And it's important for me to also honor wickedness. As poets, we're so often willing to hold something up and be witness to it. But I like the instability of confessing my own ugly. I like that the rules that I've created for myself are to never be presented as, I don't want to say approachable, because sure, I'd like folks to come up to me until I don't. But I don't shy away from appearing dangerous. And I don't want my art to be governed by any binaries whatsoever. I'm not good or evil. And to be categorized as such prevents me access to self-exploration, examination, correction, healing, growth. Like I'm free enough. I'm 45 now. I am a free bitch. I'm big and free enough to carry the entire spectrum of humanness within me. And, the magic within my craft and the lessons gained from my lived experiences is my choosing not to give in to the chaotic voice of trauma and violence that wants so much to be the driver of my living, but instead just a passenger and never a backseat driver. I do my best to not allow those things to take hold. 10 years ago, that this would be a different conversation. I've been able to acquire a level of control that me as a traumatized person, as someone who has bipolar disorder, CPTSD, I need the stillness that healing requires. In the beginning of writing, I wanted to just dive into the chaos and name it all. But as I've learned over the years, it's impossible to write from the eye of the hurricane, right? Like in order to assess the damage, in order to name the aftermath, you have to be far away from it enough to survey that isn't in the language of fear.
You just spoke so eloquently about your craft, but also just like a lot about personal growth. And I'm wondering, one, could you explain a little bit further what you mean by poems stopping instead of ending? And then I'm wondering if that was a tool for you to write Pink Elephant. Do you still feel like that concept is true for you being a completely different woman?
Oh, absolutely. And I have always said that I like to write from the aftermath point of view instead of within. And again, it's all swirling around. Nothing comes to an end. Like even when we die, there's just this other energy and it moves to a different, for me anyways, this is my beliefs. And so for a poem to stop, I don't think it's my duty to provide the reader a pat ending. As someone who had a background in slam poetry, who read poems that stopped and didn't end, it made my work very divisive. So I love that I have that background because it always allowed me, when someone was giving you between a 0 and a 10 on the same poem, I love the way it frustrates people. But I'm more interested in, okay, so when you feel uncomfortable with this, the way this poem stopped, where are you taking that? Like, how are you as a human receiving this narrative, and how do you allow it to end? How do you want it to? What are you going to do in the fucking world to enable the woman in that poem who spoke to fucking exist and be free as possible and be liberated from patriarchal violence, from abuse, from oppressive entities? Like, that's what I mean by that. Like, I really don't ever think that there's any story I could ever tell that has an ending, because I'm still working shit out. Like, there are things within Pink Elephant, which is now a 10-year-old book. It's going to be re-released August 2022 on Button. You know, that was a different person who wrote those poems. Of course, I was a much younger writer. There was a level of fearlessness that I still have, but I think the book very much shows like someone needing to get it out of their body. And then I feel like for a lot of readers, it jumped from my body and into theirs, and like they were being attacked and had to like get away from the shit. And I get that. I just think that to allow my art to provide a platform for my wickedness, for my the ways I have been a harmful human to another, the ways that I have survived my father, have survived being orphaned by my mother's schizophrenia. You know, I'm still working that out. So how can you ever say that anything in my life has ever really come to an end? It always just stops. And I just believe in that level of momentum, and for the reader to have to pick it up and decide for themselves where to take it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense because it opens a space to ask that for that person who's listening or reading, to ask that now what question, which is like a question of responsibility. This was like the thing about Pink Elephant. Like the reason that I said I couldn't look away was that ugliness. I felt like I was like seeing some ugly part of myself reflected back to me in a way that was like an enormous relief. Like, you know, like this like recognition of like, oh, I'm allowed to exist, like I'm allowed to be here, you know. And yeah, it creates a space for that too.
I appreciate you saying that. There's a poem in there, Tomboy, that is the story of when I stole a mermaid from the beach and trapped her in my closet. And it was called Tomboy because what I wanted to do was sort of capture what it was like to not feel the gender I was assigned at birth. Like it just didn't match who I was. And because I was an angry and violent child, I assumed, well, that must make me a boy. I'm going to grow up and to be a man one day because, you know, I'm this. And I was always called a tomboy as a kid. And I wanted to show that like even a mermaid that's half woman, half fish is more, you know, like has more femininity than me. And looking back at it now, I had thought that it had more to do with not understanding or recognizing the gender I'd been assigned. But now I just realized it was actually more about my very first girlfriend, Kim, who I had in junior high, who was the epitome of femininity. I mean, she was sent to the principal's office all of the time for the clothes she wore. Always skin tight, always had holes on the side, like just not appropriate at all for 7th grade, you know? And really what I was trying to do was kill that girlness and that womanness that endangered her based on how I grew up, where I grew up, and what I had seen in media. I knew that she was just like this walking siren, just saying, kill me, kill me, kill me at any time. And so I chose to kill. What's interesting is that when people started calling her lesbo, I, you know, big fucking rugged Rachel Camacho, beat her up because she was lesbian. She was my girlfriend. When you think about all that internalized homophobia and how in order to not ever be accused of the very thing you are, you do try to do everything to erase what's around you that resembles you or that can in some way expose you. A lot of the work in Pink Elephant does that. It's got this level of like exposure. It wants to reveal how so much of our self-hatred comes back and we wound the other. And, I don't want to ever come out as clean in the end of any book. I just want folks to understand that even through mythological creatures, even through like fantastic elements, I am being as honest as I can. I'm not letting the data or the facts or the truth get in the way of me being honest.
I mean, but here's the thing, right? We talked about like violent people with imaginations, right? And like, I feel like that. I love to throw hands. I actually want to say like, one of my favorite conversations to have with old Black people is about how people don't fight or stab anymore, and about how the neighborhoods be better if people stopped having guns and just like,
it's a lost art.
It is a lost art, and it's a loss because it was right. You can't. There's no missing with a fist or with a knife, right? There's no bystander that gets hit. There was like, I want you to hurt, and I got to get close to you to do that.
Absolutely. And what's even greater is that you commit this like moment, right? This is me as like, fucking former Chola who would fight people and their parents. Like it was bad. I think that it's just so much more respectful, right? Just come up. We have beef, sock, boom, boom. And then that's it. It's actually squashed.
Yeah,
we got that shit
done.
out.
We
can actually grow. Yeah, we can move on now. It's cool. Like there isn't this like giant fucking piece of like aggro energy that's waiting to like spit nails at any bystander. It's just beef between us. We're done. Like if I could just slap Tony Hoagland, everything would be great. Like his poems wouldn't hurt me as much. I think about that a lot.
He did.
Wait, did he really die?
He did.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, he did. He did for real.
Yeah.
I thought you meant after I hit him, he'd be dead. And I'm like, you're right. And I'm like,
can I tell you some shit that embarrasses me about
like
his
a wild
death?
story, actually.
So Tony Hoagland, before he died, made like a poetry mixtape of like poems that he liked. And it was like 14 white niggas and then me doing Dinosaurs in the Hood.
You're lying. Of course it was.
Which I find hilarious.
And isn't it the most telling thing? Like I feel like there were white folks who felt like, oh yeah, I could agree on that poem. All right, there you go.
I literally feel like he was like, I got to put a nigga on here so they don't think I'm racist. What's that one young one? Who's that new one?
Amazing. Aren't there plenty of poems where I've read and I'm like, this person has never been slapped in the cafeteria.
Oh, for sure.
They've never been approached for talking shit and then just straight slapped.
Plenty of poems, plenty of tweets, plenty like you've never been in danger.
Right. Legit. And you're like you're having to make it up. So I think that, poetry can be a great equalizer in that way. But at the same time too, like, I think that there is a necessity for you standing up for yourself in the real world and like really clocking somebody every once in a while. When we are bad, when we are violent, it's not just simply the opposite of good. It's a response to a hunger of some kind. And it's easy to identify the architects of hunger, like imperialism, religion, capitalism, colonialism, white supremacist delusion, and all of that shit. And for anyone to designate how we're allowed to respond to that hunger, I think is just really fucking foul. I don't believe in it. I think that my writing, I just choose to be as dangerous as I am in real life, which isn't to say I'm not this volatile ticking time bomb where people are like, and I actually stayed quiet for a very long time. I survey just like any poet. I gather the data, the information, and I sit there. And it's not until it is just going to actually sour my spirit to keep holding it. That's when I release. So that's the same could be said with poetry as well as when I finally pop off on a fool, which, this pandemic has made that, the fuse has been shortened, my friends. But I was talking with my partner, Jacob, who's this like Appalachian hillbilly grizzly bear of a man who also writes poetry. And we were talking about the poem Shooter by Jan Beatty versus Hoagland's poem, The Change. And we were talking about what the boundaries of wickedness are. And he said this incredible thing. He said, when wickedness is disobedience, it's revolutionary. When wickedness is the indulgence of the powerful, it becomes a tool of oppression. And I was like, holy shit.
That's a smart man you've got.
He just always, and he just sits there and he's very much the surveyor as well. We both are often like the life of the party. We can't wait to leave. And, have you ever been really good at something you hated? I'm a very entertaining individual. I can hold a conversation and not want to be there at all. And so sometimes I just let the poetry be itself and do the thing. I'm going off on a tangent right now, but someone sent me a manuscript unsolicited recently and asked for, suggestions. And I'm like, I suggest you never send me.
Wait, like
or any
straight
other
up,
poet.
like cold sin. Like, would you read my book?
What are you talking about? Oh yes. This is like every 3 months, a whole one. And I'm like, what?
That's wild.
And within the last 18 months, y'all, for real, I haven't written shit. Poetry has not come to my mind lately. I've been trying so hard to have my children be okay because within quarantine, lockdown, pandemic, and everything else, they did not come out of it in a way that I had imagined. And so it's really hard for me as, a mother to even think about craft or art or any of that shit right now, when ultimately I need my kids to be okay first and foremost, because if they aren't, my work, you'll never see it again. That's just the cold truth. And I've had to be mindful of, okay, is this pandemic Rachel talking? Or is this an actual person who is considering all of the, weighing all the options and paying close attention to what is needed? It's been a fucking difficult time. And I've had to do a lot of surrender and a lot of quiet time, which I think when you're writing poetry, you do, and when you put it out into the world, that is definitely a level of surrender. And the same can be said with parenting in this, I'm so tired of the term uncertain, but it's just chaos, what is happening right now. And so I have to allow for the motherhood thing to step up in a way that I'll be honest, quite frank, I haven't had to worry too much about my kids. They're really smart. They have been surrounded by scholars and poets and writers and artists all of their lives. And for them to struggle, that kills a lot of the artist in me. I just don't have fucking time for her.
I always tell folks in my classes, I'm like, it's okay if you can't right now. Your creativity gets sucked into the rent, gets sucked into all these other areas of their life, right? And so so you got to surrender to poems. Right now you're surrendering to motherhood. And honestly, I don't think you would be the writer you are if you didn't surrender to your life every once in a while, I
agree completely. And I go a long time without writing. I will write a book in 30 days and then not write again for 4 years. I wrote a chapbook after the passing of my baby niece. I wrote that in 6 hours.
You wrote Mammoth in 6 hours?
Oh, yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, because the deadline was 6 hours away. So I just sat down and wrote it. I got it out of myself, and then I was just able to keep moving, which isn't to say that the grieving had stopped. It just had reached a different level of it. And I know that they say there's specific stages of grief, but really grief is an ongoing thing. We just learn how to adjust our lives to this new silhouette of sorrow that's constantly orbiting our bodies.
Can I ask another question about surrender?
Yes. Oh, which is the scariest word for me. Please believe.
I mean, totally. I mean, this is the thing is I think of you necessarily as somebody who surrender's not the first word that comes to mind when I think of you. Yeah.
Because it's synonymous to in our brains as loss. Right. And that's not the truth.
Yeah. So how does this new relationship with surrender and what you're finding there, does it come up against the fighter in you? And how?
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. That's a perfect question for anyone I think who knows me and understands. I have been swinging, but isn't that also the most exhausting thing to be, is in a constant state of survival, panic, and fight? It has taken 600,000 souls dying. It has taken me having to sit in my household to be very present with my kids in a brand new way and not be able to help them through their mental illness, through like all of the internal struggles that come with being young kids, two young trans kids who haven't really been able to socialize their new selves. So they have been trapped in their former selves because really the authenticity does sort of come to light once you can introduce your new self to your people, right? Like that's such an important step in transition, is to be able to say like, this is who I am. To be able to just to say, there's nothing more I can do. Like, this is where a professional has to come in. This is where I have to just give you time. Because not only did I have two children who were in the midst of transition, and also right at 7th and 8th grade, like when all of the social norms sort of start kicking in, and when you start like your hormones are just fragrant as fuck. Woo.
Those are some wild years. Those 2 years. Ooh.
So imagine having to be trapped in that, to have not been able to go outside to see your peers, all of that. Like it couldn't have come at a more vulnerable time for both of them. And so I can't read right now. I don't I have ADHD. I cannot focus. I have to listen to audiobooks now. And I'm really upset at how many books of poetry are not in audio form, but we'll just get onto that later. And so a friend of mine, Kim, posted, it's 2021 and the word of the year for me is surrender. And I was like, oh, I recoiled from that. And then I sat with it for like 2 days and I understood, it's really letting go of an expectation and instead allowing what the future holds to just reveal itself in due time. And, like all trauma survivors, all we want is control. All we want is to be able to now as adults maintain some level of normalcy, which, I mean, what even is that, right? But I have to understand too that like, I can't change much. And I think so many of us have come to this conclusion throughout the pandemic that really all we can do is just be better people or not, sleep in or not, work out or not. But like, I just have to allow myself to not try to imagine a thing is going to end up the way I need it to. And instead, I'm going to have to just adapt to whatever it is that comes. And it is, again, really hard because poetry has allowed me a voice that I had really suppressed for a very long time. Poetry in the beginning, it felt like I was snitching, which is so against the code of like Chicano culture, specifically gang culture. And it's been a great journey to discover that I can also be a witness to what I have survived. I was actually most present for it. And that when I allow the imagination to kick in, just maybe save myself from experiencing things again when I'm writing them. Allowing imagination to maybe take some control is a really exciting thing. And I recommend it for lots of folks to allow the magic of yourself to exist against brutal instances of both like, violence as well as even the softer things. I'm allowing now for my brain to not be this racing, panicked, whirl of, oh gosh, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And at this point, it's like, if it happens, well, if my machete can't fix it, I don't know, then we'll just have to, do something else.
What an amazing sentence.
Machete first solutions. That fucks with it.
Literally. But I also, I've been around for a while now, and I trust that when it's time for me to write, I'll fucking do it. There's no expiration on like my creativity. I know that I can witness something, hold it in my body, and great. It's even funner to come back around to it when I've evolved as a human and I can see it and portray it in a new way that maybe I couldn't have in that time. And again, like, I've just stopped. I didn't end. Bitch, I'm here still.
It's such a hard place to get to, though. I think especially as poets who come from slam and spoken word, where like the whole shit is having something to say and getting on the stage and say it.
Like have something to say and then like have a neat way of getting out of it.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think it's such a hard way to get to what Rachel's talking about, which is the comfort in like, I don't have that much to say right now. You know? It's such a hard space when like your whole poetry brain has been engined towards every time you come here, we're sick of the old thing you had to say. So maybe have some new thing that you have to say today. And life is long where it's like, yeah, those couple of years, I didn't really have shit to say to y'all. Like, you know, or to myself.
Or it was just my business.
Right.
It's just my business.
It was my business. I didn't have nothing to tell you. I was talking to my people for a little bit.
That part.
Yeah.
And that's exactly actually what it is. I have 3 like really close confidants that make it to where the poetry is not necessary right now, you know? And if I didn't have them, yeah, I'd probably be writing. But because I'm able to sort of work it out with them and like be in community with like, you know, misfits, witches and bitches who truly have been through it. And I need that because I didn't go to college. I never studied writing or poetry or any of that. And so I'm a very self-taught human being. And I still am trying to teach myself how to be and reconnect with women, with the feminine, and not look at them as like potential victim or potential orphaning being, right? Because the mother wound is long. It never ends. And so I have to really reconcile with that too, because I've always said I'm a recovering misogynist. And there are days where I'm like, nope, don't think that way, bitch. Like, you know better. You know, we have to constantly be in like re-educating ourselves of things. And so I'm very grateful for all of the people I've met through, like when I think about like Lauren Wheeler, Sonia Renee, like the folks that I've been in community with for like almost 2 decades now, who have taught me how to shape myself into being a good human and writer. Like it all comes from, you know, these amazing people who were unwilling to let me give up on myself and name the end. You know what I mean? Like they're like, no, there's still more to learn, bitch. You're dumb. Keep going. And, you know, I have been so beautifully educated within the poetry community. I would not be the mother I am without them. I wouldn't be the poet I am without them. I wouldn't be the fighter I am without them. And so I always want to give them their proper credit as well, too. Because as much as we can harm each other, we can also assist each other into liberation and save each other in ways that we probably never could have imagined. And so isn't that great when you let these other people like broaden your imagination and let them stretch it out and like let you be able to fit more into it? That's what I'm here for.
You know, this is something that Dinez and I were talking about before. And, you know, we were talking about you as a community builder with Pink Door, which is like a life-saving and life-giving space in so many ways. And, you know, you've been talking about the community that has been holding you down. And then we were also kind of asking like, you know, like anytime somebody says like the poetry community, it's always like like, does that exist? Like, is that something real? And like, is it useful at all to think of community in that kind of like realm or among that people? Because we think of you as somebody who both is building spaces and also like dismantling and like shaking up spaces that call themselves communities. So
community can itself be a very dangerous, triggering word. But I think that if there's a kinship in some way, and we wish to honor that, and we wish to do that together and to help others elevate their stories, and help assist each other in the telling of them, that's important work. But I don't think that we can't rely on, oh, this is a poet, did I rely on you? Nah, don't do that. We develop our own little, you know, chosen family units, which is, you know, such a thing queers have been doing forever, and any people who've been othered by society do it. But really, I mean, I don't even think of myself as a builder. I just think of myself as an instigator. And you're aware, Franny, like Pink Door isn't like sitting down and, we're going to do a bunch of poetry and writing. No, it's actually about recess. It's actually about fun. It's about people coming together that have one thing in common, if nothing else, as well as, I have now exclusively non-men writers of color, Black writers, to come together and find joy and find themselves, to learn how to be still, surrounded by crickets chirping and all kinds of wild foxes and a little babbling brook, and allowing yourself that kind of comfort and stillness that is never easy to acquire, and then get to the writing. The writing is so secondary to just sort of illuminating the kinships that are going to help you survive. And I've loved to see what you take back to your own atmosphere. Community is so weird to say now, because it can be a community harms. But again, what is a community? But it's a group of people coming together for some reason. As human beings, there's no such thing as a safe space, of course. Like, that's why I believe in brave spaces and all of these levels of kinship and, these beautiful friendships. I wish I'd had them when I was small, when I was younger. I'd have a lot less credit card debt and baby daddies.
Or maybe higher limits and an extra baby daddy or two.
I'd have better baby daddies. I'd have some baby mamas too, that's for sure. I'm just really grateful, though, that folks have trusted me to have this space. And as well, I'm running around frantic. I'm doing all kinds of things, but I'm not like this orchestrator. It's up to them to come together and like sort of build for themselves the kind of atmosphere that gets them free enough to be able to finally write in a way that they couldn't if they were coming straight out of their 9-to-5 cubicle. The importance of recess is huge. And it's just as important to my kids who on the East Coast, since moving here, I couldn't believe how much recess is taken away. Not just because of weather, but the kids are acting up. You don't get recess. The kids are acting up, so they should have recess is what it is. Like, how folks don't get that is ridiculous to me, but adults don't have enough recess as well. Like the other day I was talking, again with Jacob, and I was like, I just can't believe that I had a job where I was told when I could eat. Just that and alone, I'm like, oh my gosh, like it just is wild. And I have so much respect for the folks who like can like go do that awful grind office job thing because it's what pays their bills, and then they go create. Like, I couldn't do that. I just don't have a good brain enough for that. I just hope that at the end of all of this mayhem, we can find for ourselves spaces like where we could just be quiet for a while and learn to just be tender with ourselves and each other in new and vibrant ways. Everything we've been doing has been wrong, with the exception of, a few things. And I think the creativity will come in new ways. It will show itself. I'm writing plays again, I started writing plays, and now I've been writing 3 consecutive plays, or I'm writing 3 plays at once, and it's fun. I love it.
3 plays. Are they related?
No, not at all.
You're just writing a festival of plays.
I am. I'm in the Rochester Fringe Festival this year, September 18th and 25th.
Oh shit!
And it has drag, and it has a sideshow act, and it has an old man playing me in the future. It is going to be fun. Everything. Yeah, it really does. It's because really, I mean, you can't be a person that talks about your mental illness and in a restrictive format. Like, that's impossible. It's got to have, it's just got to have everything, and maybe not make sense in a few areas. I don't believe that we have to be accessible to everyone. I don't believe in art having to do that. I think that it's actually very fucking important to be exclusive sometimes, and to have only 5 homies in the room understand what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah. Amen.
But that's a whole other conversation.
Cool. That was great. I think that was a great part.
I'm sorry there was like no theme to this.
No,
there
was. I've been writing stuff down.
Is there? Yeah. Oh my heavens. Yeah. What is it? Tell me now.
Nigga, you make more sense than you think. Don't worry.
Yeah. it's totally true.
I appreciate you, D.
And you tangent well. Trust me, because we've had some people that tangent bad on this show. So
Yeah.
you tangent well.
You tangent.
Just sign language the names of those people to me, please. I keyed. No more of that, y'all. We're done.
All right, motherfuckers, let's play some games. That was aggressive. Let's play some games, everybody. So
Come on, shit eaters.
Oh my God, I almost said some
cocksuckers.
racist shit to myself. I was like, all right, spear chuckers, let's go.
I hate you guys. I can't stand you.
Although
That's it.
I
I'm
love the
leaving.
sound. I love chuckers it's just so good. Like it has a nice sound to it. Chuckers. Like, yeah, white people, y'all were really on one when y'all called us spear chuckers. That shit's funny.
Oh my goodness. Get me out of here.
Can we, if we can't escape racism, can we still appreciate when it's funny?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What else are you supposed to do?
Exactly. So that was a weird transition for this game where we're going to play Fast Punch, a game where you're going to tell us the best or the worst of those categories. Rachel McKibbins, would you like to be a pessimist or optimist today?
Optimist.
Ooh, love it.
We love it.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
I know. I did that on
Love
purpose.
that. Great.
I'll get us started. Best sandwich.
BLT.
Best object in the spirit room.
Pelvis.
The pelvis. I was like, Elvis? No, pelvis. Pelvis.
Pelvis.
A pelvis. An actual pelvis.
Best dead woman.
Emma Goldman.
Okay.
Great.
Which is not true, but
Great.
probably Harriet Tubman is actually the
Yeah,
best.
that was the best dead woman.
Let's just be real.
Best movie villain.
Oh shit. Jack Torrance
What is that
from The Shining.
Oh, from The Shining.
The Shining, you
Oh,
young fox.
I've never seen it. There, I said
I
it.
haven't either.
What?
You neither, Franny?
Yeah, no.
He's a deranged writer. He's inhabited by a ghost. What is wrong with
Is that
you?
Here's Johnny?
Yes.
I understand that reference. Thanks to
Because someone nutted in you and said that. Let's be honest.
No, because it was a joke from the night. Actually, yeah, probably. Now, actually, next time I nut in someone, I'm gonna say
You
That's
do it.
a
Do it.
horrifying thing to have said to you while it was happening. I'm like traumatized.
Can
just
you
hearing
imagine?
about it? In
I would scramble off into the snow so fast. Oh dear.
Best title of a poem that you wrote.
Finally, the author gets personal. Because it's at the end of a very personal book.
I was like, bitch.
I remember,
Yeah,
remember
it's
getting
like-
that, being like, oh,
Yeah. It was such a I thought everyone would laugh and no one
I did.
laughed.
I laughed. I was like, oh, now.
Yeah, now they're personal.
Best candle smell.
Sandalwood.
Best title of a poem written by your husband.
Oh, I don't know how to say the word. It's fuck. Well, it's a word. Oh God, it's a crazy poem about his sister. Pika. That's it.
Amazing. Best cocktail.
Fuckers. You know what? An old fashioned
Great. Wow.
All right, last one from me. Best cake.
cake row cake. Bitch, if you don't remember that.
You mean a boxed Intimates cake?
Yes. Yellow cake with chocolate frosting.
Yes, it is. You're right.
Inside
Shout out to the cake
jokes.
row. Shout out to
Cake row.
one of the best nights at the National Poetry Slam I ever had.
The best cake is snuck in cake to a poetry slam.
Yeah, this is NPS Brady. This is NPS 2013. It was one of the Boston
don't
ones.
know.
It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, and me and
I
Rachel
just pulled an
was just
Entenmann's cake.
eating an
I
Intimates
just
cake.
pulled an Entenmann's cake out of my purse. We just started eating it with no utensils.
And I was high, and I was like, "Nigga, I'm hungry."
Cake. And then we were like,
Terrible.
during people's poems, we're all cake row, like stupid during
Yeah,
people's
we were just. It was our like impromptu team.
Oh no.
cake row for no good reason.
Oh god, that was some delicious cake. Oh my god.
Okay. My last one is just best thing that you miss about Pink Door.
The moonlit cackling over a table of dominoes. Our 10th anniversary is this year, but it's going to have to be next year. But we have a secret person coming. But it rhymes with Satricia Pith. And nothing rhymes with Patricia. But yeah, it's like my dream.
I like that you just switched the letters in her name. Smatricia Pith.
Satricia Pith. Stupid.
Well, I'm coming. I have a pink door too. Mine's just in the back. So
you can. You're dumb. Pink door is only because my door of my actual house is pink. Has nothing to do with genitalia.
Sounds like pussy to me. Sounds like pussy to me.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right, who's fighting?
Okay, yes. Now we are going to play this versus that, where we make two things fight, and you tell us which one will win in a fight. Sometimes we do like concepts and ideas, but for you, we wanted to actually put people in a fight. Taylor Molly with a knife versus Tony Hoagland with a bat.
Oh, shit. Here's why I know that the answer is Taylor Molly with a knife. He's still living, and he probably like will scamper up a wall like some sort of exorcist fucking
like
phantom.
Hereditary, my dude.
Yeah, exactly. He just seems like there's some pent up. You know that bitch levitates. You know. There's just too many white folks holding him up. So he's just gonna... It's funny because, like, I get along with Taylor, actually. He knows that he, like, pisses me off. But, like, I mean, come on. His family, like, invented, like, the felt that goes on a pool table. You know it was originally skin. You know it was.
It's fine to make fun of Taylor Molly because he's rich. And he will be eating for the rest of his life because one time he wrote a poem that made teachers happy. Mm-hmm. And another time he wrote a poem that made white men feel happy about hating women.
Yep.
Exactly. What are you talking about? Yeah. And he also took my baby's sterling silver rattle. So he gave my child this battered antique Tiffany silver rattle. And he goes, hey, do you still have that rattle? And I'm like, bitch, of course I do. It's from Tiffany. Like, it's the only thing I'll ever own from Tiffany. And it was still in my child's room. And he needed it for a photo shoot. And he never sent it back.
Oh.
That's shiesty, Taylor Molly. And also, if you have things for Tiffany's for me, then I will say 3 nice things about you on the next episode of Versus.
We did not. How did we turn this into this? Why are we like this?
I love that you say this, and this is like maybe our last episode of Versus. Oh, wait, because we have one more.
We have one more. He's not even going to hear it before we record it. I mean, literally, but Taylor Molly, regardless, the next time, if you give me things from Tiffany's, I'll say nice things about you. I wait until Vogue is interviewing me for some reason and be like, you know what we really should talk about? That nigga Taylor Molly.
He's got enough real estate. We need to kick him out of this combo.
Okay, let's do the last one, though. This is our last game for you. It's called This Versus Something Else, where you get to choose between living here or living in this alternate reality that we just discovered. So, would you rather live in this shithole or a world where not every time, but sometimes and randomly, the violence in your poems comes true?
There. What? Are you kidding me? Do you know how much of that is like actual attempts at spell casting, conjuring, and manifesting? Like, are you kidding me? Heck yeah.
Really?
Randomly is scary. I trust violence more than stillness, which sucks. But that's just where I am in the world. And I'm trying to train myself to trust stillness, but I'm just not there yet. So as who I am right now, I choose that shit. It's honest.
Wait, but what about poems that you're telling about things that already have happened? Like, is it the violence of the poems about like events in the past then come back? How does that work?
Well, I would say that I now would know how to better like tame that shit. You know, that's shit I've already survived. I'm just a weirdo like that. Sorry.
But I was going to say earlier, even like your thoughts about like poems stopping instead of ending, that's a very witchy concept, right? It's like in terms of the spell, right? You finish the spell and shit happens, you know?
Exactly. Like it kind of sort of becomes this this built up narrative that you are now destined to fulfill or end or whatever. Like, it's up to you to come up with how that continues or discontinues. So yeah, I mean, I'm that's just how my brain likes to be. I'm a lunatic and I embrace it. I lean into it and I eat cake.
Sometimes intimate cake. I'm gonna go out and give me a goddamn intimate cake today. That's ain't nothing like some cheap cake with a glass of milk, motherfucker. Woo!
Literally.
Yeah.
I put milk on ice because I
put milk on ice too, and my boo calls me weird.
What are you talking about? I would drink iced milk on a hot summer day the way bitches drink Budweiser.
I am a milk drinker, okay? Like, not like I enjoy milk as a beverage. I think milk tastes good with.
What's wrong with
I
us?
think I do definitely ice it, and I will drink milk with cake or pasta or pizza.
You
Those are my
not.
3 favorite foods to have.
I drink milk with spaghetti like you would not believe. This is funny. What? Where are we just learning this about each other?
I don't know what it is, but milk and pasta sauce it's so good.
This is funky. I love this.
Freddie,
this
get on it.
Yes,
I'm glad I found.
Because people think I'm disgusting. They think I'm a monster.
If I drink a glass of milk with a slice of pizza, I would ruin the house. I would ruin the environment.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. Sure. But like, for those of us who can tolerate it, it's a glorious thing. I love it.
I'm not saying I can tolerate it.
Right. I was gonna say, I don't think I've been.
Your boo pays for it later.
Yeah. Well, you know,
everyone pays.
You just have to fart so much in front of your boo that they think it's funny.
And we're ending on farts. It's perfect. It's a great bookend. I love you both so much. I'm so grateful for this. Thank you
so much, Rachel. This is, I mean, you mean so much to us when we were baby poets, when we were like now starting to become aging poets.
I have gray hairs in the front.
Well, thank you for having me. You both are just tremendously generous listeners as well as writers. And I hope to drink milk with half of you soon.
I can't wait for it. I mean, and like seriously, like Fred was saying, like, I just love you. And like, I don't know. I can't think of a better person to like help us like cap off these 5 years.
Yeah, what a tremendous 5 years. So yeah, I'm here to beat all the trouble you need to bring it to that kind of ending.
Beautiful.
Right. I love that we were like, okay, and let's close out with some wicked chaos. Wicked good chaos.
Let's blow the shit up. All right, Rachel, would you read us one more poem?
Of course. I'm gonna actually read from Mammoth because I don't always. So this is the close to a book that is just about my 23-month-old niece, Ingrid. Salve. You want only to become magnificent in the naming of terrible things. You want suddenly to have children, or want the children you have to stay in the yard where you can see them. You want the man in the elevator to turn and look at you, to pin you against the illuminated numbers, to unhinge his jaw and devour you. These are the things you need to survive, to fake normal. Suddenly you want to live how you want to live. And I don't mean to get personal, but I have to ask, how alive are you right now? How many poisoned years have you consumed? How many fires have you conquered to defend what you do? What haven't you done? What are you doing? If you're hearing this, it's not too late. The child is buried in the ground. Her bones are winning, but your flesh is still yours. And what better power do you have than that? None. None. This is it. Go ahead. Eat everything while you still have teeth to do it.
Rachel McKibbins, what a menace. What an incredible, beautiful menace.
Wow. A menace for the people.
A menace for the people. A menace for the people. Jesus, that's really, really good.
Yeah. I really bow to like Rachel's embrace of like wickedness and like feralness as part of the human experience, especially that feral shit, right? I think it takes a lot to be like just like so comfortable in like your feral like bitch self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever have a time, Franny, where you feel like your most feral self? Like you're like, oh right, I am an animal.
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh, I mean, this is something that I actually kind of relate to literally watching Rachel as a mother and as like a mother of community spaces. But like, it's truly, if any of my friends or loved ones are threatened, like at all, I just watch my brain evaporate and it's just all like lizard brain. And yet I can't fight. So like, I don't know where all the energy is going to go to someday. It's just going to go to me getting hurt. But like, as small as like, if somebody leaves the H off of Fatih's name in an email, I just feel like my blood starts to, you know, like I just turn green. Ooh, like the other day, a man on the street bumped into Cameron as he walked by, and I was like, I'm about to go to jail right now. I'm going to murder this man. And Cameron always had to like just like talk me down. So yeah, that and losing at games meant for children. That's the other time when I feel like my brain leave my body and I just become an animal.
I have seen you lose a game, and it's just like, Franny's plotting revenge right now. I'm going to watch her in the corner store.
Oh my God. Like, I was telling somebody recently that like there were a few times soon after I moved here with Cameron that like we played Bananagrams. And like afterward, I had to literally like go out onto the fire escape and like smoke a cigarette because I was so upset, like so angry and like cry. I had to like do breathing exercises and presencing exercises to like calm myself down and like pump nicotine into my body because I was like so activated. So those are the two things, like defending the honor of my friends and losing at Bananagrams. That's what I'm my most animal self.
I love it. That makes sense for you too.
What about you? When do you get feral?
I think mine are both in like homosexual, like queer situations. One very similar to like you, like when I'm like out with like friends and stuff like that, I'm both like barking and biting at people who are like near my friends and being like, what the fuck do you want? You don't need to flirt with him. He's too drunk. You don't need to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to you. Like, and all this other type of shit. And I'm like ready to fight. But also I'm approaching, like, you ever seen just like a dog or like an animal of some sort, like just like bite the neck of like their young child to like pull them somewhere? I'm also that with my friends. You know, I'm also like biting at them, be like, what the fuck are you doing over there, you drunk bitch? Come over here, sit down, drink that fucking water. Like, and I'm just mad that I have to mother at that point. But I'm also like, I love you. Do you want chicken wings? I'm gonna get you some chicken fingers, you little bitch. Don't talk to any of these men.
Definitely, as a general rule, don't talk to any of these men.
Yeah, exactly. But then also like, then I become feral when I'm also like in like a bathhouse or something like that. And surely what I'm describing is pre 2020. But you know, when it's just like a space to just be like a little like sex rodent, you know, and it's just like, fuck this, lick this, suck that, this, that, have all the fun. And I'm just like, me want meat and me am meat. And you know, and it's just
me want meat and me am meat.
Me am meat. Me cannibal. Me existential crisis.
Who am me?
Who am meat? But it's true. I'm like, you know, I just like have no brain. I'm just like, if I try to think a thought, it's too hard. It's just like, just give me some hole, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's why. Like, why go to the bathhouse if not to just like be feral and be an animal for a little bit?
And like, is it really unabashed sex if one of you isn't like growling or like oinking without intention?
Ooh, oinking? Girl, have you oinked? Have you done that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's like a snarl, and like depending on how congested I am, it can turn into an oink.
I love that. Is it great sex or is it allergies?
Maybe it's great sex. Maybe it's allergy season.
Exactly. Oh man. Well, I think that is a great note on which to say that remarkably, this is our last interview episode of Versus for me and Dinez, which is like very wild to say after these 5 fucking years of doing the show. And yeah, so I don't know. We'll have one more episode, which will feature a small but special surprise. And in that episode, we'll also be going back and looking at some of our favorite moments from Versus and playing some games. And so we hope that you will tune in for that. But yeah, this is the last interview with a poet, and it's been like quite a ride. So thank you all for being with us on it.
Yeah, we never thought 5 years ago that we would get to have as many and as splendid of the conversations that we've got to have with, probably over 100 poets, over 80.
I think about
100 poets.
Yeah.
And it's truly just the tip of the iceberg. We hope that you have enjoyed these last 5 years with us, and we hope that you will continue to support the show as we hand it off into the capable hands of the new host. It will definitely be their own thing, but they will be continuing on in our spirit. And so we hope you all, along with us, will cheer them along. And remember, they have to find their sea legs too. We didn't really start being good podcast hosts until 2-3 years in. So
I would say 3 episodes ago.
Until this episode maybe. Yeah. And so who actually knows if we were ever good hosts? But we hope that you all will encourage them, support them, pray for them as they continue this Versus dream. Because truly, like I said, we have only just touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to contemporary poetics. And we look forward to another 5 and another 5 and another 5 years of folks being able to bring you conversations, sitting down at the table with some of your favorite poets and bringing y'all a good conversation that hopefully you feel a little bit more at home in. From the bottom of my heart, thank y'all for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you all. Truly, truly, thank you. I can't wait to see how this grows, But
I can't wait to not have to host it. Oh my God, I just get to listen.
I know, we get to listen. It's going to be really cool. But yeah, so why don't we thank some people and get on out of here. So I recently found out that a student of mine had passed away from last semester. So I'm just going to take this time to just dedicate this episode to Alden Powers. Thank you, Alden, and thank you to all of my students in that class for making a really beautiful space within a hard time, and that I hope that you all hold each other and continue writing and remembering. So yeah, I just personally dedicate this episode to the memory of Alden.
Yeah, I don't think I need to say anything beyond that. I'll just say prayers to Alden's friends and family in your time of mourning and healing. To the spirit of Alden, wherever you may be, shine on. We hope you are at peace. And just a special prayer, not even a thank you, going out there to all the students who are returning either back into the digital classroom or who are in a, maybe not so secure in-person situation, to all the teachers and educators and staff out there who are in these schools. We pray for you. We hope that you are doing well, both physically and spiritually. My heart goes out to the world, to Alden's family as well.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Nidhi. Okay. Well, we also want to thank, as usual, our producer, Daniel Kisslinger, who's been the champ of champs over these last 5 years and the best collaborator in the world. We want to thank Idalmi Noriega and Itzel Blancas at the Poetry Foundation, always and forever. Thank you to Post Loudness. Thank you to all of you for continuing to listen to us here in our very final season of Versus with Franny and Dinez.
Make sure you rate, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at BS the Podcast. That'd be a great place if you want to stay up to date on what's happening with the new host of Versus and when the show will be coming back in the new year. Or, just subscribe and that thing will just slide on into your queue whenever it gets here. But we seriously thank y'all so much for listening to the podcast. Run out and buy all of Rachel McKibben's books. You will be better for them. And thank y'all. Be well.
Be well. I have the last word. Goodbye.
Word.
And I also say word.
That was Franny.
Okay, but now it's me at the end. End
it's
episode.
Over. Okay. All right. Dinez Smith. It's me. Bye.
Okay. Pretty short. Bye. Little comedy sketch for the people.
Little sketcheroo.